In the late 1980s, Ford's spreadsheets told one story: rising fuel regulations, aging platforms, and an irresistible shortcut: a Mazda-engineered coupe destined to retire the Mustang's rear-wheel drive legacy. Behind closed doors, executives nearly signed the death sentence twice. But what happens when brand loyalty turns into 78,000 physical letters, overwhelming the boardroom logic and forcing billion-dollar plans to pivot overnight? This is the business autopsy of how the Mustang's fate was decided not in Detroit, but by customers who refused to let it die. Here is what Ford planners never saw coming. Federal law didn't leave much room for nostalgia. By 1985, the government set the bar at 27.5 miles per gallon for every carmaker's fleet average, with a jump to 32 on the horizon. Planners at Ford stared down spreadsheets that turned every Mustang sold into a liability. The Fox body's V8, a staple of the lineup, pulled in EPA numbers closer to 18 or 20 miles per gallon, far below what regulators demanded. Each low-mileage sale dragged down Ford's average, and every point below the target came with a financial penalty. The CAFE penalty structure was simple. For every tenth of a mile per gallon below the standard, the government charged a fine per car. Multiply that by hundreds of thousands of vehicles, and the numbers ballooned into millions. Pressure didn't stop at Washington. Insurance companies, tracking crash data and theft rates, started raising premiums on rear-wheel drive coupes, especially those aimed at young drivers. The Mustang's core buyers now face sticker shock before they even reach the showroom floor. Meanwhile, emission standards tightened again, forcing engineers to add costly catalytic converters and recalibrate engines, expenses that stacked up faster on an older, rear-wheel drive platform. Inside Ford, the logic was relentless. Every department, from finance to product planning to compliance, saw the same thing. The Fox body Mustang was out of step with where the industry and the law were headed. On paper, the answer was obvious. A lighter, front-wheel drive coupe could boost the fleet average, dodge insurance hikes, and share costs with global partners. The spreadsheets didn't care about heritage. They cared about compliance, cost, and risk. The Fox body Mustang's roots stretch back to 1979, a time when rear-wheel drive and V8 power still defined American performance. By the late 1980s, that architecture was showing its age. Tooling costs, once spread across a dozen models, were coming due. The platform's amortization clock was nearly run out, and every new emissions tweak or safety update drove up the cost per car. Ford's planners described the Fox as technologically antiquated in internal briefings, and finance teams flagged the looming need for expensive retooling if the Mustang were to continue into the 1990s. On spreadsheets, the answer was simple: retire the Fox, redirect investment, and let the modern, front-wheel drive future take over. That logic might have stayed buried in boardrooms, if not for a headline that broke the story wide open. In the summer of 1988, an automotive trade journal ran with the news. The journal reported that Ford was considering ending the Mustang as America knew it. The article cited insider sources and spelled out the plan. A Mazda-based front-wheel drive coupe would take the Mustang's place. The story landed with the force of a subpoena. Within days, Mustang owners and club leaders began circulating copies of the article, underlining passages, and mailing them to local chapters. The leak did more than reveal a product plan. It exposed Ford's calculus to public scrutiny, threatening to turn a quiet internal transition into a reputational crisis. Automotive reporters seized on the scoop, framing it as a collision between corporate efficiency and customer identity. The press coverage transformed a line-item decision into a national debate. For the first time, Ford's quiet math was up against a public storm. Mustang Club of America organizers didn't wait for Ford to issue a press release. Within days of the news leak, Club President Jack St. John and Communications Chair Lisa Miller drafted a battle plan. Their July 1988 newsletter didn't just urge members to write, it supplied a pre-printed template, instructions for local chapter routing, and a timeline for batching letters in bulk. Each chapter was tasked with collecting signatures, bundling the forms, and forwarding them to a central mailroom near Dearborn. The operation ran like a supply chain, not a fan club. Volunteers tracked incoming batches by the thousand, logging shipments from California, Texas, the Midwest, and the Southeast. Some chapters pooled funds to cover postage. Others coordinated handoffs at regional meets. The club's internal mailing log recorded every box, every envelope, every stack, batches of 10,000 at a time. By early October, the tally reached a scale Ford's mailroom had never seen. This wasn't scattershot outrage. It was a coordinated national campaign, engineered for maximum impact. The sheer volume of mail routed through a single pipeline turned customer sentiment into a physical force, one that would soon force Ford's executives to take notice. The Mustang's future was now being negotiated in the most old-fashioned way possible. One letter, one envelope, one signature at a time. Stacks of envelopes began to choke the corridors outside Ford's executive suite. By the first week of October 1988, the company's mailroom logged a total 78,000 letters, all demanding the same thing: do not let the Mustang die. The sheer volume overwhelmed standard corporate feedback channels. Where a typical product controversy might draw a few thousand notes, this was a sevenfold surge, tracked by internal logs and impossible to filter out. Each batch arrived bundled by region, signatures from California, Texas, the Midwest, the Southeast. Evidence of a national uprising, not a passing protest. On October 15, 1988, Ford President Harold Poling issued an internal memorandum acknowledging the weight of this physical backlash. Poling's language was blunt. The Mustang, he wrote, was truly amazing in its ability to mobilize customer loyalty. He instructed his senior staff to reassess the kill proposal, warning that any decision to discontinue the model must account for the scale of brand loyalty and the risk to Ford's dealer network. The memo circulated among product planners and finance executives, forcing a recalculation of the cost-benefit models that had favored the front-wheel drive replacement. Within months, the plan to end the Mustang was dead. The Mazda-based coupe, already deep in development, would launch as the Ford Probe, not as the new Mustang. When Probe sales opened for the 1990 model year, they reached 140,000 units, a strong debut on paper. But inside the company, the distinction was now clear. The Mustang name could not be transferred by spreadsheet logic or engineering pedigree. The letters had drawn an uncrossable line. Dealer surveys from the early 1990s landed on the desks of Ford's product planners with a familiar message. Buyers wanted modern features, but still asked for the Mustang by name. Instead of reading this as a vote for the car's survival, planners fed the data into a new round of cost-benefit models. The internal code name was Project Falcon, a plan to quietly phase out the rear-wheel drive Mustang in favor of a front-wheel drive coupe, this time with even closer Mazda DNA. The spreadsheets looked convincing. Dealers in suburban markets reported that younger buyers were choosing imports with better fuel economy and lower insurance costs. In one survey, a Midwest dealer wrote, "If Ford builds a Mustang that looks like a Japanese car, we'll lose our regulars." Yet the logic inside Ford's planning department stayed rooted in the numbers. Bob Lutz, then head of worldwide marketing, backed the idea that a modern, efficient coupe would keep Ford ahead of the curve. The clash was unmistakable. Planners and marketers saw the Mustang as a variable in a portfolio, while dealers and loyalists saw it as non-negotiable. Project Falcon advanced behind closed doors, setting up a new round of internal resistance. John Coletti didn't just argue for the Mustang, he built proof. On February 7, 1991, Coletti delivered a memo to Ford's executive suite, backed by hard numbers from SVT's prototype tests. The document laid out a simple case, a re-engineered rear-drive Mustang, running a lightweight aluminum V8 and revised suspension. Clocked a 0 to 60 time of 6.8 seconds. That was faster than the outgoing Fox body, and well within the range of what buyers expected from a true Mustang. The prototype's weight came in 150 pounds lighter, and emissions figures edged closer to federal targets. Coletti's memo circulated among the board, landing with the force of a technical exhibit, evidence that the Mustang could evolve without surrendering its core strengths. In November 1993, Ford's board gathered for a final vote. The minutes recorded a rare consensus. The SN95 Mustang would move forward, rear-wheel drive intact. The Probe, once positioned as the future, would sunset by 1997. The Mustang's fate was no longer a question. It was a verdict, delivered by data, advocacy, and the undeniable weight of customer demand. The Mustang survived, not because Ford believed, but because 78,000 voices made inaction riskier than change. Corporate plans bend when customers mobilize with numbers and consequences. Markets don't just follow logic, they follow pressure. What product did you fight to save? Share your story below.